Hi, thank you for joining me on Public Access. Behind me is Window Rock. This is the capital of Navajo Nation. We're here today because it's the first day of the council chamber meeting. The government of Window Rock is a little bit different from ours. They have different chambers and delegates. Their structure is a little different from the senators we're used to. This is a sovereign nation we're here at today, and this is their first day of democracy meeting. We just got finished with all the interviews today, and I have to say I'm pretty moved. I talked to a lot of senators who are starting out for the first time and are hopeful for what their fight will look like going forward. I talked with victims and people who are advocates for victims. I spoke with a lot of people who simply have a lot to care about, and we asked them one question: what makes you feel safer? Today, we're going on a walk with the rest of Navajo Nation in order to ask them what makes them feel safer. There's over 5,000 missing indigenous women in the country alone, and that's a pretty startling number. We're talking to our community here that needs to know more about it, and I need New Mexicans to remember that these are our neighbors, and it's worth remembering their struggles as our own. So please walk with us and see what their struggles are like.
We have a lot of data, but it's just not processed. We don't know this data, what story it tells, so we need to find out what kind of...
This is a pretty long walk. This isn't meant to be something that you do in order to get attention and quickly raise an awareness. This is for the people walking. This is the kind of walk you take because you want to think about something while you go there. And this was really a solemn moment for these people. A lot of the people we spoke to were victims. We spoke to delegates on this walk. They had a lot to just kind of give us. The people that we spoke to really did make me understand why they were there walking. And I haven't quite been part of an environment like that. And I hope you'll be as moved as I was by it.
Well, I think we're walking because we want to show those victims, survivors who've been affected by sexual violence, that we are walking to support them, that we believe them, and we're here to, as advocates, we're here to listen and support them and do what we can to not necessarily make cure their whatever mental health issues they're dealing with, but to encourage them that they can heal, that they are able to be empowered, that they will be believed, and then that maybe one day that they will be able to share their story and be a voice for other victims who have not really come out, only because of shame, guilt, anger. That's what victims feel a lot. They go through a lot of traumatic behaviors, and it's really, some of them, it's hard for them to come out and say that they've been affected by sexual violence.
And these are just some of the things that people that are your friends and family and everyone that you've met in your life here in this community, this is just some of what they experience and go through.
Yes, it has. My friends, my relatives, my friends, my colleagues, some of these women and men have been affected as children. Their childhood trauma can consist of,
Watch behind you, Nick.
They consist of...
That's just part of nature right there, isn't it?
Yeah, they've been affected by child sexual abuse, and they've been carrying this with them for many years. And when I'm speaking with any victim or survivor, most times women will come out and say that when I was young, when I was a little girl, so-and-so molested me, so-and-so touched me, but I couldn't really talk because I was told not to talk about it. They were shamed, they were probably threatened, and it really does cause friction among family members when a victim finally discloses who perpetrated on them, especially if they're family.
So our title of our piece today is What Makes You Feel Safer? And that's something that I, as your neighbor, would like to know in Albuquerque, and I think our viewers would like to know. What makes you feel safer?
What makes me feel safer is that we want to make sure that law enforcement. You know, I know that when we don't have very much law enforcement here on Navajo, but we want to have law enforcement know that, you know, how do we speak to victims, how can we help them, and, you know, just be that advocate for them, and let them know that they are believed, and that, you know, as advocates, we need more advocates that will be there to help them, especially when it comes to resources. You know, what I really want is like therapists to work with these victims of sexual assault so that they can finally heal, and that they can be productive mothers, productive women in the community, you know, just to be that advocate for our community, and not necessarily put the spotlight on the victims for what they've gone through, but to put the spotlight on these perpetrators and let them know, or let the community know that, you know, these are those that hurt others.
So tell me about the sign that you brought out here.
Sexual assault is a serious thing where I was assaulted times in my 20s, and that regards to sex trafficking. And the idea that sexual assault is when a person is assaulted, it means they don't listen when someone says no, and they don't honor the person when they say, I don't want to know. And the fact that indigenous people have like the highest rate of sexual assault speaks volumes. And being a survivor of this is to stop, listen to those that have been affected, and to make better choices, better laws to protect the victim, and not re-victimizing the victim all over again, but continually let her see the help out there that she needs. There's resources and things where, because being in a relationship with that type of sexual assault is hard, especially on the partner that they're dealing with in a relationship, and it also concludes with domestic violence. But in a way, it needs to be heard. There's more stories, there's more people out there that needs to have their voices heard, and to say stop sexual silence, it speaks a lot, because you're not only thinking about your body physically, but the soul, because when you're assaulted, that person's actually taking that away from you, and it's really to the core of your soul, and you can't get that back. And that's why this is really important, to be walking in this awareness, because we all need to be valued, we all need to know our worth, and we all need to know that we're not vulnerable, that we can overcome, that we can't be re-victimized again. And just speaking about it is a step of saying, you know, I'm gonna have my voice. I'm gonna take what that person took from me, and I'm not gonna let that happen to me or my kids again. And building really healthy boundaries, relationship with the people and the community, and being that role model within the community.
So Kimberly, your family is from here, you grew up here. You live in Albuquerque actually with us now, and
Yeah.
you're welcome to our community, and for those who've been paying attention to the news, it's a very recent welcome to your stay here. And I'd like to know, what's it like to come back after all this time and be here walking in the name of the other victims that you're here to support?
It feels good to be here. I'm actually had my handprint yesterday on before our brother Cole brings plenty, and his sister Kayla Red Bear, and I'm thinking of them right now for justice, for our indigenous people, for survivors who don't have a voice right now. Coming back home is like a new chapter for me. I feel like I have a new positive identity. I feel like I can look in myself and not be discouraged. I'm not afraid to talk about my experience, but to actually talk about it, to encourage people to. It's a part of healing. And being back home, it feels good. And being that my kids are with me too, and they're happy, it makes me happy that they are happy. And I'm at a better chapter in my life right now, where I could say I did survive it, but now advocating for it, helping others is a major thing. That way they can continue to break historical trauma, historical generational stuff, and they could succeed in their identity person of who they are.
Well,
yeah.
sorry. Well, Kimberly, you have a really touching way of speaking, especially because you speak from experience and strength. And I think it's a message that our people in Albuquerque need to hear. Well, good morning. I wanted to know why you're out here walking today.
We're walking to bring awareness to violence against women, children, families.
And how does this affect you and your community and your family?
I'm one of the Navajo Nation delegates, and so this really does affect all of our communities on Navajo.
May I ask what community you're a representative of?
Yeah, Tisto, Delcon, Indian Wells, White Code, and Greasewood.
And what are some of the challenges your community has faced because of this?
Well, I know we have a court, a district court in our community in Delcon, and I think that's one of the areas that if we're not making sure that our cases are going through, a lot of our women and children, they suffer because they can't be able to know what's happening in their cases. They can't move on and have different kind of like temporary restraining orders, those kind of things. They won't know, and it won't be effective for them.
And has it been pretty hard to fight for those things for your community?
I think so. It's just trying to trying to figure out, as a new delegate, trying to figure out how our Navajo Nation system works, and trying to figure out where those gaps are in our system, and then trying to address them with the people who work with them.
And what are your thoughts kind of going into your new delegation, it sounds like, and kind of taking these challenges on? Or are you kind of worried about that? Is that a lot to take on in your mind?
There's a lot of all kinds of serious topics that we have to address as delegates. This is Delegate Shandine Claw from Kayenta as well. So we're both new, and I know she's always in meetings every day because she's with the Budget and Finance, and I'm with Law and Order. But I think it does take a lot just to try to figure out all the new, and for me it's new, the way our government works, our tribal government works, and then also all the issues and concerns, stress, frustrations that our constituents bring to us, and you're also trying to address that at the same time.
And do you mind if I ask what community you're representing?
Sure. I represent Kayenta, Delegate, and Chilchemita.
And how long have you been representing them?
Both delegate, actually this is vice chair of the Law and Order Committee, so we've both been serving for about a little over a year.
And what has your experience been like in that year? What are some of the things that surprised you as soon as you got in?
Well, so before I became a member of the 25th Navajo Nation Council, I was fortunate to work in different positions in the executive branch, so I kind of had some background with government. I think the challenge in working with council is everybody has an equal voice in the council, so the challenge is making sure everyone gets adequate amount of time of education and resources that they need in order to make decisions. So I think that's a major challenge when trying to make decisions on our council. Is today we're bringing awareness to violence against families, women, and children, but the amount of data that's collected, I think that's a major hindrance in really trying to support and strengthen our voice all together.
I think you guys both helped me understand a bit more about what it's like trying to represent these communities and fight for them. Our title of our piece today is What Makes You Feel Safer? You're out here watching for over 5,000 women who are currently missing. What makes you feel safer? What's something that we in Albuquerque need to hear?
I think one major, at least for myself, I'll let Vice Chair answer too, but what would make us feel safer is the amount of data collected and shared among outside entities with the nation.
I think for me it's just consistency in our tribal government, making sure that everybody in our system is really communicating, working together, and so that's what I think.
This really is an important and special moment to have started off the first day of your congressional hearings, to be doing this in a way that you remember victims and the people you're fighting for. You know, I don't really see our own Congress people starting their day out by remembering the people they have to fight for. That was already moving enough. And then just to see what their leadership had to offer afterwards was pretty remarkable.
This morning we walked from the Navajo Nation Museum to walk in awareness of sexual assault prevention and awareness. This is an awareness walk to begin awareness to protect our families and to protect each other, to protect our children and our grandchildren, and for our unborn children. And together we want to say thank you to our volunteers, our advocates. I do see Adobe here, the people are all throughout the Navajo Nation. Some have traveled from Albuquerque and throughout the Navajo Nation to bring awareness, and to all of our Navajo Nation employees with the Division of Social Services and the Division of Behavioral and Mental Health. Thank you for being able to take a very strong walk. You know, it's difficult to talk about this certain subject, but us as leadership here today, we stand by you. We are here in support, and we continue to provide hope and love and compassion and prayer. And many of our victims and our survivors that are out there listening, just remember that we are here for you and being able to speak out. And we have many of our supporters here and many of our advocates, many of our counselors are here with us today.
It was a tough walk, and I can just imagine how tough it is for individuals that go through this. But I want each and every one of you out there to know that you're not alone. We're here for you.
Amber Crotty is a pretty significant individual in Dene politics. She won her seat for the Two Hills, which is a region she's now a delegate of. And in the council of Navajo Nation, she stood up and addressed directly another delegate there in that Congress and said that he was responsible for the sexual harassment of her. And that's a pretty powerful thing to do that I haven't seen in our own Congress, and I haven't seen that really anywhere before. Now, her bravery to stand up and say that has meant that she is constantly one of the people who is at the forefront of having to fight for the nearly 5,000 missing indigenous women in this country. You know, she really is an inspiring figure to talk to, and she helped organize this walk today. And she wanted to walk from the museum to the Capitol in order to have a moment of peace and understanding for those women. So I went in here to try to understand what they had to say.
Shiaj, Mr. Cody, he's always been really helpful in his work with Casey family programs. And that work is to make sure that all of our children, whether they're here in our four sacred mountains or in the urban area, are protected. Our goal now is, although we talk about sexual assault, we want to work on a lot of prevention. So as a young person, to know that your body is sacred, that at no time do you ever have to give someone a hug, at no time do you ever have to sit on someone's lap, At no time you could even refuse a handshake if you feel uncomfortable. And so that goes against some of the ways that we've been raised, but it's really to protect ourselves. Thank you. You can see with the builders of this council chamber, we have our 4 mountains. So we have the east, we have the south, the west, and the north. And so this whole council chamber was set up in a way for our teachings, for you as our children. It's been here for over 100 years. But when you go in there and start looking at the murals, you'll see the history of our past, but you'll see it in a way that's counterclockwise. And so now we want to restore the healing for all of you. So we want new murals that tell your story on the top. So we welcome you to our chambers. Make sure you bless yourself. You're in a space that has a lot of prayers. And every day, grandma, grandpa, great-grandma, great-grandpa, they all prayed for you. They didn't know your name, but they took out their taradin, they took out their Bible, and they said, our children and our future, we want you to be safe. We want you to feel loved and secured. So that's what we're doing today, and we're honored that you're here with us. So, thank you, all of our staff, and heal your inner child. Let our students introduce themselves, and they're also going to answer if they were given $1 million to help their people, what would they do? So come on up, what?
I would spend it on medicinal herbs for my people to help. I would help by helping disabled people, like people that went to the army and came back, and other people that just have a disability that they were born with.
And so my colleagues, they have a clear vision on how we collectively can work for the betterment of our Navajo people. With that in mind, I want to introduce Chiach here, Elliot. If you could stand up, Elliot Neal. He is part of our missing and murdered indigenous persons for the office of the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southwest region. The Southwest region is going to encompass districts of New Mexico, Colorado, Utah, Nevada, and Arizona. Mr. Neal is one of 5 missing and murdered indigenous persons Attorney General in AUSA, who will provide specialized support to the United States Attorney's Office to address and combat the issue of missing and murdered indigenous persons. This support includes assisting in the investigation of unresolved missing and murdered indigenous person cases and related crimes, and promoting communication, coordination, and collaboration among federal, tribal, local, and state law enforcement and non-governmental partners on MMI issues. So thank you, Mr. Neal, for being here. And I also want to make sure that Ms. Elisa Dimas is our AUSA Indian Country Crimes Liaison for Navajo Nation. We received all of the press release on the work that they're doing, putting away the most violent criminal individuals here on Navajo Nation wide, so that your home is safe, your community is safe, and our people are restored. So yeah, for being here. Thank you.
Could you please tell our folks back in Albuquerque what your name and your clans are?
Okay, so what my name and my clans are?
Yeah, your clans.
Oh, okay. I was not expecting that from you.
Well, sorry, I've learned that's a kind of traditional.
That is,
so
that
I've
is.
learned it's nice to ask that.
It is. Thank you. I appreciate that. So Shay, so Kia'ani Nishla, that's Towering House people, are my mom. Viking people, Bashishin, Deschini Deshache, the Irish people, Deshanale. And I'm Shay Amber Kanasba Krati, Yanishit Tol Hatsoi, so Sheep Springs, De Natsha. So that's where I'm from.
Okay. So Amber, what district do you represent in Navajo Nation?
On Navajo Nation, I represent Legislative District 12. So it's comprised of 7 chapters in our northern territories: Sheep Springs, Two Great Hills, Todlina, Sonosti, Red Valley, Cove, Gadiahi, and Big Clabato.
And how many states does that cross into?
That crosses 2 states. So I have Arizona chapters and New Mexico chapters. So 2 different counties too.
So Amber, I'm curious, what are some of the challenges that face you as someone who leads groups of people who live in 2 different states states. That must be hard to represent that kind of diverse background. What's that like? What are those challenges?
So actually in the Northern Agency we have 3, because then we also have Utah that we have to navigate. And so what happens is the challenges of course, they're like local county jurisdiction issues, dealing with the different states who at times are not our best advocates or best partners, and then trying to navigate all of that with our federal partners. And so looking at the different layers of jurisdiction and the challenges, and then keeping up with all of that communication, because essentially what we want is to erase all of those imposed boundaries just to make sure that we're protecting our people on the ground for their best interest.
Well, I'm curious and kind of, you face those challenges. They're not easy to overcome. Today's the first day of actually addressing those challenges. It's the first day of your chamber meeting. And you started today in a pretty powerful way. We walked with you from the museum all the way here. And that was to remember over 5,000 women who are currently missing in our nation. That's pretty powerful, and that's a lot for me to kind of keep in mind all day. As a representative, how are they on your mind right now?
So I think what we do is, because today's focus was on children and the impact. So we're a seasonal way of thinking. So we're in spring. So this is our time to what we call nisahakes, is like thinking about it. So on my mind is, those families of the missing, but then also how those children are silenced in those conversations, because we put a lot of our time and energy to find their missing parent or guardian. And what is taken out of the discussion is how they navigate that while trying to go to school, whether working or becoming, the guardian to their siblings who remain. So I think how do I do that is, well, I'm a very spiritual person, so it's through prayer and providing offerings, but also using my skills to navigate all of these jurisdictional areas so that they don't have to. So my role is to look at the policy, look at the data, have the hard conversations, so that when a family is impacted by a missing loved one, then we can concentrate all our efforts to get them their relative to return home, and also like to get them the support services that they need, because the criminal justice system so far has failed us. And so we're looking at what are other ways we can provide some holistic healing to the family.
So the name of our piece today is What Makes You Feel Safe or Safer. It was hard to figure out exactly what I wanted to ask coming into an event like this, especially a day like this. The reason I came to that question is because as you speak about these issues, it makes me clear that everyone has a certain amount of courage that they take with them into these fights here. There's a certain courage in getting through the day-to-day life when you are an indigenous individual in America. It's not easy. So I'm curious, as a representative, as a woman in this country who's speaking for others, what makes you feel safer?
I would say right now I never feel physically safe in any type of environment that I'm in, and that's just the reality of us walking through this world. The constant federal policies of dehumanizing our experience to making us less than. But where I find confidence and reassurance is through prayer and our teachings, that we have a strong legacy of women who have laid down the foundation for us to be here. And so I'm stepping into their shoes. And so I feel safest when I'm in prayer or on that pathway. And that's the healing pathway. And so whether that's with our holy ones or whether that's in our homes, that's where I feel safest within myself.
Well, thank you for taking the time to answer my questions. You asked a really good question in there, though. You brought up a bunch of students. They were out here this morning. And inside, you had them in the chamber, and you asked them if they had $1 million, how would they help your community? I liked that question a lot, and I almost wish I thought of it before I came here, so I could title that one this. But I'd like to ask you that question. If you had $1 million, how would you help your people?
If I had $1 million, I wish actually we would need about $8 billion just to...
you need a few more of those.
Yes, but $1 million right now, what I know is I would invest more in the advocates, because our advocates are the ones that are connecting our survivors with this system that has been developed to disenfranchise them. And so I think that's been the most impactful way for their holistic healing, and giving them access to, whether it's our practitioners, our medicine men, medicine women, to get that type of healing that they can do at an individual level.
Well, I just recently watched in Congress that it's hard to get the health funded,
Right.
the health services, and I understand that part of that discussion is also the health services of medicine,
Yes.
and being able to have traditional services
Yes.
available to your people. What does it mean to have traditional services available to your people? That's something in Albuquerque we may not really understand,
Right.
and would be really good for us to hear.
Yeah, so I think just have you heard some of my colleagues, we've lost some really instrumental knowledge holders, and so it's how do we convey those teachings to our young ones so we could bring them in as like apprentice or to be part of that healing, because really they're just the vessel, right? They're the vessel between our holy ones and now. And so I think that's the challenge, is the language and how to get through that language barrier, because there's a lot of blame and shame, but to bring them into settings where they're acknowledged for that history of why they don't have access to their language. And the second thing that you may not think about is like climate change, because that's impacting our access to herbs, that's impacting our access to like streams that would flow before, and like at an alluvial setting, so they're like really close to the ground, but now they're drying up. And it's also impacting like our livestock that provide us all of this healing and nourishment. So it is also what happens to us, as women is also happening to our Mother Earth. And so we need to pull them back together. And as we fight for ourselves, also fight for her.
I'm Delegate Helena Nesbegay. Twitch eating, Slidot, Lizafana Bushes Chain, not Kaidne, that's a chain, that's Edgetabaha, that's Chanela. Adon, that I represent Bodaway Gap, Coppermine, Hachi, Kaibito, and Tanalia chapters. What I Ebe Beshbahasa Ananchle. Adon, welcome my hometown. I heard Page High School is here, home of the Page Sand Devils. Adon, the Ganado students, welcome to our chambers here, and the Little Hornets here. So, and thank you for all the ones that participated in the walk for a good cause. We just want to keep going, and we have meetings weekly. Every bi-weekly we meet, so we have meetings. So Salasa Jim she keeps our meeting going. Even in spite of the weather, you're out here with us.
Oh, that is the Nashik Asia at Gassing, so shitting away there the Navajo. So, Ado Ayakola, A. Can Lido, Jacane, Lenigi, Kodovitin.
I'm having all our staff come out to do a lot of these community work, prevention work across Navajo. So you'll see a lot of social service staff out in the community. So yeah, and then to the kids, thank you for joining us here. Thank you for bringing awareness to, or your awareness to the Navajo Nation government. Yeah. To all the planners, I really appreciate your work. One of the things that we're doing is using our Dene Action Plan. If you have not read the Dene Action Plan, it's a beautiful story. It's a story about where we came from as Navajo people and how these Nayet, the monsters, were left for us to continue with. So this is one of the things that we're using, is the Dene Action Plan is the umbrella. Within the Dene Action Plan is capacity building, such as data, substance abuse, domestic violence, missing murder, Dene relatives. So if you're interested, please come out to June 6th and 7th at San Juan College for our Dene Action Plan. It's really a document that's endorsed by President, Speaker, and the Chief Justice. So yeah, thank you for being here. And again, welcome to the Navajo Nation Spring Council session. Thank you.
We also spoke with the president. This is a man who, of course, came to meet on this 25th anniversary of this delegation in order to commemorate the first day, in order to open it. It's a pretty beautiful thing to watch the president walk up to the Congress, to go up to the delegates and say, we are these two branches of government. Let's work for the people. We told him we were from Albuquerque. We said, hey, we've come out here. We'd like to know what your thoughts were. And he did have a message for Albuquerque as a city, and I thought it was pretty interesting. Yeah, we're here from Albuquerque. We just love to know what you're thinking.
Just an exciting day for the Navajo Nation. Beautiful day. Thank you to Albuquerque, our community members. I know that a lot of our Navajo people do use Albuquerque as a city to go shopping, to get things done, and really bring about the things that they really need in their hometown. So again, thank you to all of Albuquerque. I think for the good people there, Mayor Tim Keller. I want to say thank you to him as well. I know every time I've been in that city, he's been very welcoming. So, and also thank you to the Indian centers that you have there. I know a lot of our Navajo people are definitely using those Indian centers and doing what you can to really help our most vulnerable sometimes. But as a nation, one of the things I'm working on is really establishing ourselves there too. So I'm looking forward to either in the coming months to secure some property there so we can actually have some of our Navajo people work remotely from there, and at the same time be able to work for the nation but live in Albuquerque. So
well, thank you for your time today.
Yeah,
thank you. Enjoy today. There's this moment when the president was walking up that he saw this kid, and you know they all have these buttons that they take around the Capitol there. When you work for the president's office, they give you a button, and that's how you know who the president's people are. He even gave some actually to my crew for being there. They were thankful that we came out there to document this, and he had done that generous thing to give them to my crew. But he walked up to this child, and he took the pen right off of his own shirt, signed it, and gave it to the kid. This kid, you know, got to meet the president of his nation. He was just standing outside their capital and happened to see his leader of his people walking by. And he took the time to notice, walk over, and address this kid. You know, this is more of a community, and being able to see leadership in this kind of close proximity to its people, that's pretty rare for me in this country.
As we continue to see and expose the people's chambers and all that happens here as far as Navajo Nation government and its functions. So it's a unique thing to have our students witness it. One thing I stressed to them was to observe and ask questions.
Of course, the most important tradition of democracy is the ushering in of new leaders and new voices. It's important for people to be able to come from civilian life and go into a world of leadership and to fight for their people. That's not an easy thing to do. And one man I spoke to, Lester Yazzie, this is his first time being in this 25th Congress. Lester Yazzie comes from a military background, and I asked him what is his idea of what it means to be safe and what he means to deliver for this idea of safety.
The Navajo Nation Council, the President's Office, the Navajo,
Thank you, colleagues. At this time, we have a very important agenda item noted as number 2, Oath of Office. Honorable Lester C. Yazzie, colleagues, the special election has taken place in District 6, and Honorable Lester Yazzie is now eligible to take his oath of office. With our Chief Justice, Joanne Jane, if you could come down to the front, and then to the family of Honorable Yazzie, if you want to join him, feel free to come down to the floor.
I,
Lester Charles Yazzie,
Lester Charles Yazzie,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to uphold and abide
to uphold and abide
the laws of the Navajo Nation
the laws of the Navajo Nation
and Treaty of 1868
and Treaty of 1868
between the Navajo Nation
between the Navajo Nation
and the United States of America,
and the United States of America,
and will faithfully
and will faithfully
execute the office of
execute the office of
Navajo Nation Council Delegate,
Navajo Nation Council Delegate,
representing Bahalin, Chichilka, Manulito, will to the best of my ability
and will to the best of my ability
preserve,
protect,
and defend the laws
and defend the laws
and government
and government
of the Navajo Nation
of the Navajo Nation
and advance the interests of
and advance the interests of
the Navajo people,
the Navajo people,
having due regard
having due regard
for the ethical duties
for the ethical
and respect and responsibilities of the office.
and responsibilities of the office.
So help me God.
So help me God.
I am a product of the Raymond Navajo School Board, raised at the Raymond Navajo Dormitory. So Ado, and I really do appreciate our founding fathers, also our present board of directors, our board of trustees. They also assisted me with my post-secondary education through scholarships. Adi, I just want to appreciate and say you served as Island Ranks for over 26 years. You never wore the Army green or the Air Force blue, but I really appreciate you staying home and keeping the lantern lit and our food on our table for our children. And I really thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you, son. Thank you for your service as well. My son, Cody, he's also an Air Force veteran, and he was stationed over at Kyrgyzstan, Menace Air Force Base, out of Kadika. He is part of the federal administration, so any of my relatives in this council chambers, if you ever travel out of some port out of Albuquerque, my son was the one that monitored you as you travel outside our 4 sacred mountains and as you return. He practically had you on the radar. He's with the FAA in Albuquerque, so thank you, son. I also want to acknowledge our speaker, Shinantai, Washinale. I really appreciate the fact that she's allowed me to do a temporary assignment with her staff over here with the Speaker's office. I really appreciate the opportunity that I had with the Speaker's office. The other individual I also like to acknowledge is Chief Manuel Rico. Being in the Speaker's office, you never knew what the behind-the-scenes administrative responsibility that he has. And I always acknowledge Chief Rico as Chief. Chief is the Chief Master Sergeant in the Air Force is the highest ranking in the NCO structure. They have a lot of responsibilities, and that's why I really appreciate and acknowledge Chief Rico. Thank you. Now, being the legislative assistant for 9 years for Honorable Speaker Seth Damon, I knew those footsteps. It was my memory muscle that said, oh, pick something up, tap your computer or something, do something. My muscle memory said, the boss is coming, act busy.
So I'm standing out here now with Lester. You just got sworn into office here. You were telling me how you had an election come up because there was a seat that vacated for you, and you went to your people and you said, I want to represent you and I want to have this chapter. Tell me, what is that process like? We in Albuquerque don't really understand it too well. What's it like for you to kind of look at your community and decide I want to be a leader here?
Yes. Well, I appreciate this, sir. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Lester Charles Yazzie. I've been recently been appointed to be a part of the 25th Navajo Nation Council, representing 6 communities, 3 communities south of Gallup, and then 3 communities west all the way to the Arizona state borderline. And what really wanted me to start working with my people in my community is the fact that we need to some of the projects that are just at a standstill. We haven't really moved some of the funding, and we haven't really moved some of the planning. And of course, COVID, the pandemic, was a big distraction. It really closed some offices and it really laid off some of our personnel. So we're kind of like in a, it's been 2 years, but we are still continuing to rebuild. And that's the focus that I want to bring into the communities is start leveraging these New Mexico State Capital Outlay Funds, those to put the dollars to work. And our leaders have advocated so hard and they've secured our funding. Now we just need to put those capital dollars and put them to work in some of these projects. As far as the Navajo Nation, we do generate a little bit of our own revenue, which we also work with 110 communities within Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, and a little part of Colorado. So that's what motivated me, and I expressed the interest to be the council delegation for District 6.
Well, you know, you mentioned part of the thing you'd like to do is help be a better interaction between here and the state. The seat that you mentioned recently was vacated, was recently vacated because that delegate is now working with our governor here in the state. So tell me, coming into this government, what are you hoping to kind of start to see in the way that you get to interact with the rest of the state? As a New Mexican, I know I'm very much invested in what happens to my neighbors. You guys have 4 states you get to talk to, and in your community specifically, yes. I'm curious what you're looking forward to in that, and what your challenges you might be expecting.
Oh, yes, sir. I appreciate the question. I am a delegate from the state of New Mexico. All my communities and all the chapters that I represent are within the state of New Mexico. So coming into working with at the state government with the funding and some of the programs that they afford us here in the Navajo Nation, I really appreciate the fact that we will have that open door, one-to-one direct contact with Deputy Seth Damon over with the Indian Affairs Department. And we know that we have these recon meetings for project updates, and sometimes we are just given percentage of how far these projects have going, but we like to go ahead and share that and champion some along of these projects to the end, so we don't have to have any of these fundings being reverted back to the state.
And I'm curious, it's not easy to advocate for your people. On our channel, we are always talking to people who are always fighting an uphill battle. Watching democracy work out here in these communities, it's actually quite inspiring. I'm curious, what for those who are watching you, who they watched you get sworn in today, they watched you take your oath. This is the start of a journey for you in representing your people and fighting for your people. What's your message to others who might be considering jumping in that fight and who might be hesitant, because it's kind of scary, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And the highlight of my career so far has been the fact that I've served in our armed forces and some of the leadership training and some of the the obstacles that I have to overcome in not being with my family and my children on a full-time basis. Sometimes it allowed me to go and do my deployments, but I think that would be my main interest, my main focus. We have elders, we have our veterans from the previous World War II, Korea, Vietnam. So those are the individuals that I like to continue advocating support services, whether it's minor home renovation, whether it's a basket of food, or whether it's a little bit of travel funds to go to the VA hospital for their appointments. Those are the kind of things that I'm very interested in. And again, I've retired not too long ago from the military, so I have a big heart for our Navajo Nation veterans.
Well, thank you for your service for one.
Yes,
and my last question then kind of is related to that. You've served in the armed forces. You've kind of participated in that system of justice, of trying to keep people safe. That's something clearly close to your heart. Our piece for today was what makes you feel safer, because the beginning of our day started at the Navajo Museum right over there, and we walked from there to here in order to remember and signify the 5,000 missing Native women that are currently missing and hopefully still safe somewhere. It's hard. There's people you have to fight for, and there's this idea of safety. It's not easy to get a hold of, is it? I'm curious, as a leader now, where do you look towards in that, and what makes you feel safer, and what do you think will make your people feel safer?
We begin educating our youth. I think that's very important in the school system, and the way we fostered our children and the way their upbringing. We've always taught them, family is important. Family is first. If you ever find yourself in a situation where you need to reach out to someone, you should already, have someone as far as being close, a relative or a family member that you feel secure with. For me, looking forward into this administration, we have worked with our victim advocacy from the federal level through the state and over here down at the national level. And I appreciate the fact that there was some participation on the little march this morning over here to the council chambers, and to advocate for the abuse and our missing female, our sisters, our mothers, and our relatives. So with that, we just continue educating, continue being out there and continue modeling our students to take the safe route and always have that trust in your family, and because you'll never know when you may have to rely on someone to assist you in a situation. So that's the message that I will continue, and I hope that this morning's march or this morning's cause really does drum up a lot more support here within our Navajo Nation to keep our all our relatives safe.
So could you please tell our viewers in Albuquerque who you're representing today? And actually, I've learned it's customary to introduce their tribes. Could you also do that for me?
Oh, it's actually our clans.
Our clan, sorry,
yes.
yes.
So my name is Eugenia Charles Newton. I'll do it in Navajo. She Eugenia Charles Newton and she ado dona and slingi abit ahni. She bashish chin ashe she chat wa bashinala with adina sanchla ado amado and shledo.
And what district are you representing?
I represent the beautiful community of Shiprock, which is the largest community on the Navajo Nation.
Well, Shiprock is certainly something we know a lot about in New Mexico. We've actually talked about Shiprock on our station before.
Fantastic. Hopefully good things about Shiprock, right?
Well, yes, we have
always.
We have a lot of sympathy for the causes there. One of the people we've actually talked about is the uranium mining that happens in Shiprock. If you don't mind, I'd actually like just to ask, how are you and your people feeling about what's happening there? And as a leader going into this next session, what are some of the things you're looking forward to and kind of addressing that?
Well, the uranium issue is certainly a large issue that has been plaguing not only the Shiprock community, but communities in the Northern Agency. It continues to plague our people. Our people are continuing to suffer from the aftermaths of what have occurred. We know that there was a recent vote on RICA, which is the uranium legislation at the federal level. It was kind of a fight to get there. I think that people today, we have social media that makes it easy to be able to share and to share information, but to also share causes. In the 1940s, when World War II happened, when the Navajo people were called upon to help, not only in the uranium mines, but also with our language to help win the war. But there was no social media there. There was nothing there to actually document what was happening, and now we're starting to see the effects of what happened. There's a recent movie, that won, a lot of awards, Oppenheimer, that talked a little bit, that was a little bit one-sided about, what happened, and it was a good point, to raise that, that this did happen in our history. We want to erase it, but we can't erase what happened to our people because many of them are still suffering from cancer. So I'm not, me personally, I'm not satisfied with what has come down. I think there's still a lot of issues that came out because of uranium that continue to still come out. Many of our uranium mines are still open, so people still have access to that, which means children can actually run into these mines. They can take things from them and they can take them home, exposing more people to sickness. So I wasn't happy with the compromises that were made at RICA. I was, I guess maybe I am relieved in some sense that the issue still remains, that they know that it happened in history and it's not something that they're just ready to erase.
It's not completely thrown under the rug in that way.
Yes.
Well, I try to explain to people kind of the absurdity of it sometimes. The fact that, as you mentioned, these places, these mills are still open.
Yeah.
Animals can get into them.
Yeah.
And the regulations from the federal level are completely non-existent of how they have to go back and clean those up. We've talked to the Hall No organization on our channel about that before. And one thing that absolutely baffles me still is the fact that in this very building here in 2004 there was a law passed that says uranium mining is illegal in Navajo Nation.
Yes.
Yet for some reason the United States and a Canadian company are mining uranium on your land. How is it possible that your community passed a law in this building when I was a child that says that mining is illegal, but then the nation I live in is allowed to do it because they can't be held responsible by your government? I'm sorry, I can't wrap my head around it. Can you help me with that one?
I think that seems to be the $1 million question, right? How is it that we continue to pass laws that recognize our rights and our safety, but it's not recognized at the federal level? I too have tried to wrap my head around that because I don't understand how the uranium mines continue to operate when we know what the effects are, when we know what will happen. It really, it's a public issue. because it's like a domino effect. I feel like in a lot of ways, one person gets sick, it may be just that one person, but then it's a community that hurts. It's a people that hurt. It's a nation that hurts. So I too can understand that, but at the same time, I do have to say that that I honestly have not read up enough. I am familiar that there are a few companies in Canada that are pushing to do this. I know that that in Wyoming there was a discussion for that, to also occur, but nobody has brought that here to the Navajo Nation or to the leaders here for the Navajo people.
Well, I find it shocking and fascinating, and at the same time, most of the world's uranium comes from Kazakhstan and Canada. The reason they really want to mine U.S. Uranium is because of our own weapons programs and because of the recent shutdown or we can't get uranium from the old Soviet reactors anymore, so we have to make it for them. So these are global conflicts that are actually affecting you in this community here, a place that I think in Albuquerque many people don't often think about as their neighbors, and I want to change that. Part of our piece today is what makes you feel safer. So my final question to you, I know you're on limited time, is what makes you feel safer, because we in Albuquerque would like to help in any way we can.
I think that first and foremost is the respect that we have for each other, the respect that we thrive and we grow not only as a community but as a state, as a people. And so what happens in Albuquerque affects us here on the Navajo Nation. What happens on the Navajo Nation affects people there in Albuquerque. Obviously, I just spoke about social media and how that has come about and brought information forward about what is happening in the world. But we've now become global citizens. And because of social media, because of the internet, because of what's going on, so we know what's happening across overseas. We get information from our news feeds, and we read about what's happening. We hear about what's happening. We watch what's happening. So I think that the fact that we are now in this new generation where we are now global citizens, I think that we have to understand that what happens in all over the world affects us, whether we want to admit it or not.
All right, so thank you for joining me today. Could you please tell me your name and your clans?
Andrea Donetzo. The local people call me Muzzy, and it's just a nickname that stuck, so I don't think anyone really knows me as Andrea around here. My clans are Zilgat Trabahanshla, Sinajini Bashishchin, Twidijini Dashache, although Kintlachini Dashanale.
You said you go by Muzzy. In fact, that's funny enough. One of the council members who directed me to you for an interview referred to you as Muzzy. So
yes.
You're pretty well known here in the community. What is it you do?
I do a lot of advocacy. I started out advocating for alcohol and drug-free environment, but I noticed that it did lead to other things, like for missing and murdered, and of course everything that we face here. We do have a lot of alcohol and substance abuse going on, which leads to other crimes, domestic violence, sexual harassment, sexual assault. It's become very prevalent here as far as the rape culture goes. We try to spread awareness and educate along the way to try to hit different communities, because I don't know if you know, but the Navajo Nation is pretty large, very vast. We don't really have the resources that we need to cover the amount of land and people. As far as law enforcement goes, it's very limited. We don't have enough officers to protect everybody. So that's one of the major problems we have here. So the more we have perpetrators out there getting away with their wrongdoings and hurting other people, because I know that with sexual assault, sexual harassment, you carry it for your whole lifetime. So around here, this is kind of, I've noticed it's getting bigger. We're having a bigger crowd. We have children showing up now to be able to share their stories and to be here. And we call it a healing journey, because that's basically our goal. That's the end goal for us.
And that's kind of the idea, I guess, of walking from there to here, right? Is the journey and that time it takes to remember and appreciate. So you're here in a community faced with a lot of problems that any community might face, but there's over 5,000 missing Indigenous women in our country currently, and today,
and a lot more unreported.
Yeah. And in fact, more than the 5,000 that I said, and more than that. So it's hard to fathom really what a community might face. What is it like in your day to day? The families that you interact with, what are the struggles they have, and what are the resources you do have to help them, and what's that experience like?
Oh, okay. When I started back in 2017. This was after the trip to Standing Rock, the No DAPA movement. There, I felt the empowerment to become a strong matriarch, to be able to lead. Because prior to that, I did 14 years military service. And when I came home, I had a need to have a purpose. I needed a purpose. I needed to do something. So I started my own healing journey, and it took maybe about good 5 years before I realized that, I do have a platform. I do have a voice, and I would rather do something that other victims and families can't do, which is to have a voice. Just being a voice for them empowers them to come forward and solve some of these crimes and put these guys away. I noticed that one thing that we do lack is legal representation, and also not only on the res but off the reservation. We do have the border towns. We want equal representation there too. We also want the Indigenous people just to be treated the same as everybody else. And we're kind of running into some hiccups with the border towns. But at the same time, we try to build those connections and to network to find resources. We do have some organizations, nonprofits. We also have other facilities that are able to help our people, say if they find themselves in a situation, where we had to start, number one, what do we do first? At the time of trauma, your mind goes blank. You know what to do, but you have that, that blankness, and you have to reach out to somebody. So they reach out to me, whether if it's 1 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm available for that phone call. And this is all prevention work, prevention of anyone going missing or murdered. And if you're a victim too, it really takes a toll on you mentally. Sometimes it does lead to suicide. Especially when you're re-victimized or nobody believes you. So I do believe the victims that do come forward, because they, on all aspects, they do need that support. They need a female there, or they need a motherly figure, or an aunt or a grandma that, they can find a sense of security to be able to share their story and to feel safe for the most part.
Well, thank you for, you speak very elegantly, and one thing I might want to ask, because you brought to the point of the suffering of the women that you have personally had to help through their trauma, to those who unfortunately couldn't get help in time. It makes me really want to understand what kind of, as a man, I need to understand about my role, about my position.
Okay, I do have a story to share.
Please.
Okay, so this story, last night, one of my brothers, we have sisterhood, brotherhood, we have veterans, we have law enforcement that have retired and do want to help. So I have a brother, last night he was like, I gotta tell you something just happened. And I was looking at him like, okay, I'd never seen him that frazzled. And he's like, I was just at the store. I saw a lady inside a vehicle, and she was totally undressed. And he's like, I knew something was wrong. I knew something wasn't right. And as I approached the vehicle, I asked her, hey, are you okay? And she says, no, I'm not. I'm being held against my will. The guy that's inside right now, my driver, he raped me, and And this is local. It happened right down the street.
And you received this call last night?
Yeah, last night.
This is last night.
About 10 o'clock. So he called the cops. They showed up. And he also requested for the lady to be seen, to start with the rape kit, because, you do need that evidence in order to put her perpetrator away. The rapist is what we have to say, because we can't really use the soft words anymore. We have to be blunt, because it doesn't come through. If you make it soft and, it's just like, oh, it's okay, slap on the hand kind of thing. But if we do call them out for what they are, it puts a lot into perspective that it's not okay. And that's the other thing, being a voice for victims and calling it as it is and speaking the truth. So how do we come back from that? How is she going to, I'm going to worry, if she's going to get the right help. Is she going to receive the services that she does deserve? Is the guy going to be, is he going to be, held accountable for what he's done? And I don't think this would be the first woman that he's done this with. Oh. So I got together and we started talking last night, and come to find out, the person driving that vehicle, they recognized the vehicle to be parked at some residence right down the road. So they found that it was somebody that is local that did capture her, drugged her up, and raped her. And I don't know how many days she spent like that. So, it's currently happening. It's actively going on. If he didn't save her, what would have happened?
But she's in safe hands now.
She's in safe hands now.
And, I'm sorry, it's a little hard to follow up with that one. That's a hard story to hear.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and this is just hours ago.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a few hours ago, I remember exactly what I was doing. I was getting ready for this drive out here.
Mm-hmm.
We're from not too far away, Albuquerque. Yeah. It's another state technically, but
oh, yeah.
I mean, being the neighbors to the Navajo Nation, it's hard to wrap my head around the evil that I think perpetrates when women are victimized and they don't feel safe, and it's hard for me to understand maybe the role I have in protecting people from that evil. It's hard to know how do you protect people from evil, right? That's not easy. And the name of our piece today is what makes you feel safer, and that's because I hear that story and I don't quite know what to make of it. I feel helpless almost. And I
Oh, don't feel helpless.
I'd love to. You seem to be a bit stronger than I am. Yeah. Having told me that story. Where's it come from?
And it's okay. Okay. Standing Rock. That's where the strength.
That's
comes
where that
from.
strength comes from.
Yeah. It's a type of strength that I call a spiritual healing. Because without that, I don't know where the strength would come from. The spiritual aspects of. Learning to cope, learning to manage, learning to be 2 steps, 3 steps ahead, and at the same time leaving people with a good feeling that they're not alone. Even with the places that I do go, when I don't stay in hotels, I don't. People know where I'm going, what I'm doing, and it is also a risk. It's also a security risk on our behalf as people that wear the red dresses. We are targeted too. So, as long as we have people next to us telling us, hey, you're not alone, we're helping you spread awareness. If you need anything, I'm here. I have a lot of veteran law enforcement friends that are stepping up, stepping forward, make sure I am safe. I sleep somewhere that I don't have to worry about anything, get my rest, get up the next morning, they feed me, just knowing that, just having that sense of unity, it makes it easier. So it's 2 and 2, the support and the spiritual healing.
Well, I have to say I'm really moved by your story and the fact that you fight those battles on a day-to-day basis in your job. I understand why the community looks up to you so well. When they introduced me to you and they had us come over here, you might even notice at the beginning of the interview, we were pretty happy with a lot of smiles. And today this feels like a joyous day. You're starting your Navajo Nation Council.
Yeah. And the children are involved.
And the children
and
are here
plus,
today.
yeah.
It's a good day, but yet you do it in a way to remember what's really solemn and what's really hard to remember. So thank you for answering my questions, and I know I got a lot out of what you had to say today, so thank you. I appreciate it. Do you have anything else you'd like to say to our folks in Albuquerque before we go?
I just like to say that even though we do have relatives here, you know, we're not forgetting about the relatives that are in the cities, the relatives that aren't safe in the Four Sacred Mountains. There's a variety of reasons they don't come home, and some of it is based off the rape culture, because some homes aren't safe here, you know, like I just mentioned, you know, the resources. We also have people getting out of prison coming back here because it's unregulated. You know, they're not regulated. We don't have the manpower to do that. We don't have it, you know, we need more information in our database to show us exactly where we're failing our people.
This was a really difficult day for me in terms of the strength needed just to actually accomplish the task of being in Arizona and the freezing morning to the blistering afternoon, and seeing all of their people and what they had to do. There's one time when I actually asked Amber for an interview that she said, "Hold on, I have to go vote. I'll be right back, and I'll do your interview." That's where they are as a people right now. They will take the time to go vote and then to go discuss. That's something that I believe here, and I know that's something we believe here on Public Access, and that's why I think it was really important to hear from all of the leaders of Navajo Nation. They're our neighbors, so their story matters here to us in Albuquerque, and you've heard what they had to say about our city today too. So, you know, this is something for us to think about here, as much as we went there to document their culture, their language, their tradition. We ended up walking away with something much more close to home for us here in Albuquerque, and I know I'll be taking that with me. Thank you for going with me on that walk again. Hopefully we'll have some more protests to bring to you guys and some more meaningful leadership conversations. But for now, thank you, and please keep tuning in to us, and we'll keep giving you everything we got around the city.